My little mustache. How are you? This is my friend Janine. I'm Janine.
Nice. Can we carry anything for you?
Her spot, wherever we are, she is always on the end of a dock, usually with a pole in hand.
Alright, let's start with the cooler. It was from the other boat. It's not a fish finder.
Oh.
See? How about that?
Wow.
Come on!
Light it up. Except for short legs.
You want to just dump it in there, that's fine.
Shame. Footprints.
Guys, folks, and this is not...
$250 to $300. So we try real hard to keep them in the boat, no matter how big the fish may be. It sucks, don't it?
I cried like a girl.
Well, technically you're a girl.
Your feet, Wiener.
Bye, honey, honey.
Bye.
Wife,
Yeah.
I love you.
Aww.
Lucky. If we lose him overboard, I'll bring you back the boat.
So that's kind of where, you know, some guys do fishing. There's really no diving, but the Cayo Costa, the shelling or the snorkeling. And we also do something, snuba, introduction to scuba diving with a, I'm calling it hookah because you can't use snuba because it's licensed.
Right.
One tank, 4 20-foot hoses, 20 feet of water.
We're supposed to wave, by the way.
Oh, wave. Oh, you need these pictures.
It was so much garbage. I mean, we could have filled a dump
Actually,
truck.
Mike, tell Captain Josh about your newest garbage that you were talking to me about.
Oh yeah, I just submitted the application at FWC yesterday for some ghost traps.
Oh, okay.
Clean up some ghost traps. Yeah.
That's cool.
What is that?
The crab traps.
Like people
I dig them out over here.
Yeah, either the buoy
The tide's low
lines
enough,
get
you
cut,
can
or
cut
just
off
like
to
they
the
move and they lose them, and there's just a bunch of empty ones sitting at the bottom.
So you have to have a license to collect them because they're someone's property, or
Yeah, it's a felony to touch them. So the FWC got
because people own them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they forget about them or they get washed up. I mean, during the season, man, those crab traps are like, yeah, y'all get some videotapes, put it on my blog. Morning, everybody. Are you recording?
No, but I'm going to do that right now.
Tell me when. Morning, everybody. I'm Patrick, Captain Patrick with Tanman Sharks, here with the infamous Captain Josh Olive. There you look at that face. From the Shrimp Tones, if y'all didn't know, he's a rock star as well. Out here with Mike Keeley, Janine, and Christina Chilikis, a couple of my dive buddies and a good friend of hers. We're going out to learn about fishing today. We want to learn how to protect the environment. We want to learn how to catch and release, and just have a good time on the water. You know, Captain Tanman and Tanman Charters are all about having fun on the water. So we'll check in with you a little later. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day. Peace out. Would you like- I have my 25 gun captain license. I don't
Bye.
You're using this, and you're going to want to have one of the standpipes.
I'm sorry.
more expensive.
Stronger.
The nice thing about braid, it's not necessarily stronger than monofilament, but it does have some key differences. Key difference number one, there's no stretch. So key difference number two, if you're used to monofilament, how it comes off the line in a curl, this stuff doesn't curl. It doesn't have that kind of memory to it, so it tends to stay straight. Key difference number three, and whoever has to buy the line will like this, with monofilament is damaged by sunlight, it's damaged by salt, it's damaged by water, it has to be replaced. If you're out fishing a lot, you might be replacing it literally every 2 months.
Wow.
This braid, once you put it on there, until it gets tangled, which people are going to tangle your braid, it happens, but you don't ever have to replace it for any other reason. It doesn't get old, it doesn't go bad over time, and this stuff, which is Suffix 832, doesn't even lose its color.
What's your preference for colors? That's my name.
Generally my preference is to have different colors. If you've got 4 different anglers on the boat, I would like to have 4 different colors. However, some of mine have gotten tangled up to the point that I have to replace the line on them, and it's been very difficult to get line to replace right now.
Really?
Well, and partly because my favorite tackle shop burned down last year.
Oh no.
So,
Fishing French, y'all.
yeah,
top.
waiting for Fish and Frank's to rebuild, and then I'll go spool up. But normally, I would have, this one is bright green, this one is yellow, this one is white, this one would be
For
blue.
your anglers, not for
Because-
anything. Sorry.
Because if they get their lines tangled up while they're fishing, I want to know who's connected to what.
Gotcha.
That's good. Yep.
Before we head out, one last question. So what about, we're being all divers, we're used to maintaining our equipment. Maintenance? After
Dead simple.
Dead-
When you come back in, you want to rinse this off with low pressure water. I put a hose on mist and just give it a nice rinse. I put water on it for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and that's it. Let it drip dry. Once it's dry, I put it away. About every 3rd or 4th trip, I take a can of material called Get Some. You guys ever use that stuff?
No.
It's an anti-corrosive lubricant that is food grade, so it's okay if it gets on your fingers, it's okay if you eat it. They actually use it on deli slicers, and it's great
Get
stuff.
Some. Okay.
Get Some. And I'll just literally, and I'll get up here and attack anything where you might get a little drop of salt water right here in the in that spot. That's where it tends to rust. And then before that rod goes fishing again, I just wipe it down with a nice soft cloth.
Okay.
But I'll leave it set for however long it sets.
Well, it's interesting being on the Peace River. If I'm taking something off, you know, I've had Costas and all those. If I leave them outside, it'll take the film right off them because the salt's always up there. So on the Lanai, it's okay to leave these up there and dry?
So yeah, and that's okay. But try to store them someplace where they're not going to be in that salt air.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, I'm living upland. So, you know, I'm 15 miles away from salt water where I am, so I don't worry about it.
Right.
I keep the stuff in the garage. You know, for you, living right there on the river, you might want to consider storing it inside.
That
it keeps it out of that salt air.
Because I'm going to be providing the equipment for the anglers.
Right.
And these guys are going to be helping. So, you know, if I have a dive room, I can make it a fishing room as well.
There you go.
All right.
And yeah, and when you're doing that, buying good quality stuff will really help you out a lot. You know, I mean, you don't have to get top of the line stuff. There's no reason to buy something that's better than you need or just to spend extra money. But, you know, these are
what's that? What?
This is a $200 pen reel, $240, something like that. And this is about $160, $170 rod.
So if I spend $1,000, I get 4 rods and feel pretty good that I've got some quality. I mean, if I'm thinking 4 rods at $250 each,
You'd be doing okay with that.
but I don't want to
These
spend
end up-
$2,000.
Right.
Reels
Right.
are 200.
Yeah, these end up being about $400 setups once you put line on.
All right, so about 1,600.
So-
Okay.
And you don't have to buy this level. You know, I get the Reaper rods because they're locally made, because I know the guys who build them, and because I know I'm going to get great customer service if I have a problem. You can get a really good rod for about $100. Star Stellar Lights are fantastic rods, but getting replacements might be a little bit challenging.
Well, and I'm local. I don't mind spending local money, and this is a long-term commitment. This is not something I'm going to do for a weekend.
Right.
So I like the customer service, and I like keeping money local.
Yeah. Plus, he'll customize them for you if you want. So.
Oh, we can talk about that when we get to it. You guys ready? Tell me what where you want to head, Cap.
We are going to go to Alligator Creek Reef first. You know the way?
I think I do. I think I do. You might have a better way or a different way, but I'm okay.
Really not that many different ways here.
There's no
shortcut.
I looked behind that restaurant.
Be able to just about see bottom. Yep, and we also may have a lot of different out here.
Oh, yeah.
Quite a few of them hanging around.
Yeah, you're probably in like 4 feet of water.
More than 1 or 2 of those.
Look at
We may
me.
actually try throwing them some shrimp and see if they're interested in it.
I caught a couple of those.
Shrimp?
I was over at Bonnet
Bonnet
Heads.
sharks.
I was over
I
by
assume.
DeSoto.
I mean, you
I
could be
was
a
telling
jackass if
Ween,
you
I
want,
said,
but-
I
Oh,
caught
not
a
you.
little one, so I gave it a little kiss on its head and set it free so it would go tell its parents. And then I did catch a bigger one.
There you go. Can you see the shallower water ahead of us now? Do you see the brown hue? Do you see the change in color versus what we were at before? Do you at least see
Looking-
the brown water
looking-
next to us?
Yes, that I
Okay,
can see.
good.
I can't see ahead though.
All right, slow us down here. So if we continue going forward, we're in about 3.5 feet of water as measured on the finder now, which probably means we're, how far down is your?
Probably a foot, 4.5.
The way these bar systems work on the edges of Charlotte Harbor, you have water that gradually gets shallower as you come up on the outside of the bar, and then you get up on top of the bar. And on top of the bar, you have water that is much shallower. So we're talking about, you know, maybe a foot of water or less in some places, depending on what the tide is. Once you get across the bar, you get into water that's a little bit deeper again, but still is not really right for this boat. You know, you want to use a trolling motor to navigate those kinds of shallow waters. We don't have a trolling motor on here, we only have the big motor, which means that we'd be chopping up seagrass as we go, and there ain't enough seagrass out here to spare. So, wrong boat to explore it, but if you do happen to come back up here with a boat that does have a trolling motor, there's some really cool stuff to explore here on the flats, and a lot of the fishing that we do in Charlotte Harbor is right up there along that tree line. As you can see, there's a little creek where you see the mouth of it heading into, and that's just a little tidal creek. It does not flow fresh water, it only flows salt water, and we love to fish places like that because there's usually quite a bit of fishy activity around them. But again, wrong boat. So, do you see anything swimming in the water?
I saw a couple jellyfish.
I saw something when we were driving.
Saw something, but no way to tell what it was. So on a day when we have a little bit less chop, this is a kind of a cool place to explore, especially this time of year, because there are a lot of fish that hang out on the outside of the bar. The last time we were in approximately this spot, over the course of maybe a half an hour, we spotted 6 or 8 bonneted sharks and several schools of Spanish mackerel, a couple of big old stingrays, lots of crabs, just lots of fun stuff to look at without having to get into the water, which is honestly how I prefer it. So. But it is a little choppy today. That chop makes it a lot harder to get good visibility out here, and it also adds a little bit of turbulence to the water. So rather than doing kind of sight fishing, what we will do is use the pole.
There's some right there.
Is it something swimming? Yeah, it's amazing how a lot of people don't realize how shallow it is and just drive right into it.
Well, the pass is really the deepest spot,
Oh yeah.
which
But-
is when they're tarpon fishing, you can't hardly get through there.
You know, you're out here and look how far away from shore we are, and people figure, well, you know, we're almost a quarter mile away from shore, so, you know, we got to be in 20, 30 feet of water.
Right, right. Which is what happened to that, I think it was an inboard-outboard where the family got stuck at Cape Hayes, running across there, and the EMTs had to walk their way out to rescue them.
Right. Not the first time.
Won't be the last.
Not by a long shot.
Is tarpon fishing big down here too?
Huge.
I know more Tampa, but down
Oh no, Boca Grande Pass, some of the best tarpon fishing in the world.
Our tarpon fishing blows Tampa away.
Our tarpon fishing blows Tampa away.
Okay.
Close.
Boca Grande Pass has the largest spawning aggravation of tarpon anywhere in the world.
All I know is that fishing channels are on my house about 16 hours a day.
Gotcha.
Well, guess what feed on the tarpon? Hammerhead sharks.
Hammerhead sharks and big bulls too.
Oh.
All right, who needs to learn how to tie a uni knot?
I do.
Please.
All of you.
Do you want me to hold while you guys learn?
You want to learn? You want to?
Well, I want to learn, but I would hold the boat going straight so you can learn first.
Okay.
You.
Jellykiss.
All right, so we're going to tie a few uni knots today, but we're going to start out with watching me tie one. Now, this is a pretty simple knot. It's uni stands for universal. This is a universal knot for tying any pound line, for tying anything on with any other kind of line. So you can use this with 2-pound test monofilament. You can use it with mooring hawser if you want to. You can really tie anything with a uni knot. So for tying on a fishing lure or a hook, we're going to start out by putting our line through the loop from the top and pulling about 6 or 8 inches of it through. I'm pinching it in place and transferring it to my left hand because I'm right-handed. Who's left-handed?
I am, but not always.
Weast?
Weast. Weast.
Okay. We're going to make a number 6. Now, did you see how I did it? The easiest way possible. I'm not putting it behind it because that makes things more complicated. I'm not wrapping it in any kind of weird way so that it turns into an upside down backwards 6. Just taking my line, putting it in place and holding it with my thumb, a super easy number 6. Now we're going to take the tail end of this 6, we're going to wrap it through the loop 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now at this point, I got to let go of my loop. The easiest way for me to do that is just to use my pinky and pull it out. So now I'm holding on to the line that I originally started with in my left hand. I'm holding on to my tag end with my right hand. All I want to do is pull those things together. Not angry gorilla style. I'm not mad at this knot. I just want to snug it down a little bit to the point that I can let it go and it doesn't fall apart anymore. It does not need to be fully snugged down at this point. I'm going to use a pair of pliers to snug it down a little bit tighter. Never put pliers on line that you're going to keep, only on line that you're going to cut away. Once you mark this line with the jaws of the plier, you have weakened it pretty significantly. See where that line is crimped now? That's where it would break.
Okay.
And this is 30-pound test. It's now about 15-pound test where those crimps are. So never put pliers on line you're keeping. Anybody know what knot juice is?
Not juice, spit.
Why do we call it knot juice? Because it's not juice. So I put a little spit on the knot and then I tighten it up a little bit. And now this is the key. Hold your hook in a way that it can't stick you. Not so that it's not going to stick you, not so that it might not stick you, so that it can't stick you. Okay? A little more knot juice on there. Hold on to the line we're going to keep, hold on to the hook, and just slide those two things together. Once you've done that, you can now trim off your tag end, and you've got one uni knot tied on there and ready to rock. Questions?
What is the hook? What is this type of,
This is a spoon.
just a spoon?
Yep, this is a small spoon for imitating small bait fish.
Okay.
Most of the bait fish in the harbor right now are little guys, so we're going to use something that looks like a little guy bait fish, and that's going to get the most attention from the predatory fish right now. You could troll a bigger spoon. We've got bigger spoons that we could troll. The idea of bigger bait, bigger fish does have some merit, but only when the food that you're imitating is around. Right
Okay.
now, there really aren't very many 6-inch bait fish here in the harbor. It's all 1.5 to 2.5 inches. And this does a much better job of imitating that than a big old 6-inch drone spoon does.
Okay.
Okay, now you can cast and retrieve this if you want to, but we're gonna troll this instead. So when we're trolling, just like usually throw a 1/4 ounce, sometimes a 3/8, sometimes a half, sometimes an 1/8, but the 1/4 ounce is pretty much standard. A lot of different combinations that you can have here in head and tail colors. These are good baits for casting, but they also can be good baits for trolling. And since we've got one spoon out, I'm going to go ahead and throw out a soft plastic tube, and we'll see what if those mackerel are still out here. Then I would expect we'll probably run across 4 too long.
So when I bring the clients out and say Mike or Chris are working here and we run across this, we want to lean towards the trolling because of the way the choppiness of the water
Well, because
in the boat.
yeah, the trolling is where you're going. It's what you're going to be able to do out here. You know, you're not going to be able to get them up on the flat.
Right.
Do any kind of fishing out there. So it's more going to be trolling here on the outside edge of the bar. And depending on the time of year, this can be highly productive or it can be very unproductive. What you really want to do is pay attention to what's going on in fishing reports. And when you hear about things like, well, there's Spanish mackerel in the harbor, there's cobia in the harbor.
Right.
Okay, well, those are fish that like to hang out on the outside edge of these bars and that respond well to trolled lures. So when there's Spanish mackerel and cobia in the harbor, this is a very good thing to do. When those fish are absent from the harbor, think about what your target's going to be. Well, there's not going to be snook or redfish or trout out here. There's no grass, there's nothing but sand here, there's nothing to hold those fish. We really need more open water fish that are okay with getting shallow. So much of the year, this particular technique would be not a great thing to do. And you need to be aware of what your fishing seasons are. I'm not talking about the gallons. I'm talking about how the fishing changes throughout the year. What fish are here? What fish are in the harbor at a particular time? Like I said, the salinity in here varies so much.
Right.
I mean, right now, this water is still salty. Come back here in August, and it can be fresh, or very nearly so. So that changes how the fish are moving around in here. It changes what fish are doing here at particular times of the year.
Okay.
We've finding that it's like 3.5 weeks.
Okay. So what does that mean you need to do?
Go out a little bit more this way.
Now, when you're going out a little bit more that way, we're trying to line behind you. You don't want to make any kind of sharp turn. Because especially when you have two lines out like we do, you don't want to crisscross each other, right? So you want to make a nice, gentle directional change and just kind of easier to get back out.
Kind of action are we going to see with these rods? Something gets on them.
So you'll know pretty quickly because the rod will bend. These rods are soft enough at the tip that they bend pretty readily, so you'll know quickly. If it's Spanish mackerel, they won't be strong enough to pull drag the way these are set right now. If we hooked into a decent sized cobia, it probably would then. So. And there's different types of trolling. This is the simplest type where we just put a lure out there and just let it swim along. We can also do some trolling with planer boards, which is a little bit more involved but allows us to fish a little bit deeper. Right now, we don't want to fish deeper because we're only in 4 feet of water anyway. So we don't need anything to go deep.
And one of the things we talked about was, you know, where we got into the sharks was catching. You know, I don't want to compete with the guys that are been doing this for 30 years, are out there tarpon fishing, want that big, charging, whatever they're charging, $3.75 a person or whatever. The guys that come down here want to hang out on a boat, see the dolphin, catch some fish, release them, is what Josh and I, just so y'all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, we're not really going after the big game. If we get one, great. But Josh had said, well, it sounds like sharks are your thing, is you can catch them and release them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So a question I have on the catch and release on the sharks, because do most of the time, besides the smaller like the bonnet heads, most of the time, are you cutting the line? How are you getting the hook out?
So it depends on what your individual comfort level is with being close to that fish. You know, I was kind of hoping that we would have a little bit better clarity over here so we could see some of these bonnet heads, because I like bonnet heads as trainer sharks. You know, they're fantastic for teaching people how to hold sharks safely, how to deal with that animal, so that when you get a bigger one, you kind of have a little bit of an idea of, okay, this is what we're going to do. So, and just because we don't happen to be seeing them doesn't mean they're not here. Right. It doesn't mean that we're not going to maybe just stop and fish shrimp anyway. So, what's with that sharp turn there, Miss Boat Driver?
Is that sharp?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, much your lines crossed.
Well,
I thought it was the waves. I'm
when
sorry.
we first started this whole thing, Chris, he was out with the family, and I think within 20 minutes he had his first shark, and they caught 6 or 8 more. And what he told me that I had no idea, so when they swallow the hook, I think you said a day and a half it's already shed.
It disintegrates.
And what we're doing is, when I fish for sharks, I'm using debarbed hooks. So law says you have to use a circle hook also. So circle hooks usually hook fish in the mouth rather than down deep. And that means that the hook is more likely to fall out quickly. Even if they do get hooked deeply, yeah, sharks have pretty strong stomach acids. You know, it takes care of metals pretty quickly. So, you know.
That's what I thought, instead of like rips their guts out.
But it is about never take it out of the water.
Right.
I mean, really, the ideal position is that you never hook it. That's what the shark would really prefer. But if you are going to hook it, if you are going to land
really good until that.
it in the water,
Correct.
and also remembering too that most sharks are what are called obligate ram ventilators. And an obligate ram ventilator means
trying
it
to
has to
hold
be
it
swimming
in real
forward
time.
to continue.
So the motor's turned a little.
So
I
when
got
I catch that shark, and I've got him boat side, he's not swimming forward, he's restrained in what he's able to do. So he can't swim forward, he's having a harder time breathing. It's a little shallower than
Yeah, but now we don't want to work. We don't care what direction we're headed.
Okay, I was just trying to do with the south up there, so.
Oh well, good for you. Good
I
eye.
didn't know.
You're heading south.
That's what I was trying to do, because you said go south, so I
Right.
was trying to keep the boat on that, but
You're doing great. You're doing great. Just remember the arrow's got to, this line's got to catch up. It doesn't turn when the boat turns. You're good.
We're going south-ish. We're going south-ish. We're staying in 4.5-ish
this
feet
is
of water.
2.5.
And we're going parallel-ish to the shoreline.
2.5.
And I've got the motor raised quite a bit.
The bonnet heads, you barehand them or
Yeah,
gloves?
You can barehand them.
Oh, yeah.
I generally barehand most sharks. The problem with gloves is pull. It's way too easy to lose that rod.
So there.
There you go.
Oh, did we just get a hit on the other one?
Maybe. Usually, yeah, that's what you say. Usually a rod stays bent once a fish is actually properly connected. So whenever you get a hit, you need to reel it up and you need to do this, okay? Run your fingers down that line and feel it for any kind of chafes.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
that's
so if you don't have any major chafes on there, then just go ahead and put it back out. But if you get a miss, swinging a miss like that, then you may have some chafing on the line, and you always want to know about that. You don't want to just throw a line back out there all chafed up, because that's how you lose a fish.
I moved your bag so much I went back up.
most of the inside of Turtle Bay here is about 3.5 to 4 feet deep, and it's mostly mixed sand and grass. So what you've got here is a very large and very thick flat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's going to be a real shallow pull to the right.
Pizza.
Peace River.
All right, so here's your soft plastic, here's your jig head, and here's how you put those two things together.
Well, we didn't tie any knots. We only tied. We only showed us the one.
Well, this one's already happens to be tied on.
I know,
So,
I know.
I mean, if you'd like, I mean, I could just cut this off, and then you could retie it. I mean, if that's how you want to be, that's cool. I'm good with that. So,
Yeah, I know.
all right. Do you think that you can tie the knot from the earlier demonstration, or do
I
you
think
need to be
so.
shown again?
I could not. I was driving.
Hold it so you make sure that you're. Do you hold the hook so you make sure you don't?
You don't need to start out holding it that way. When we go to tighten the knot, you need to make sure that you're doing that.
About 6 to 8 inches down. Hold it on this side.
And now transfer it to, there you go, and you're good to go. Make your number 6.
Close enough, not quite a 6.
It's 6-ish. Okay, now the trickiest bit. You need to take this tail end and wrap it through this loop 4 times.
4 times. Now,
Here it is.
really,
Should have left yourself more.
I should have left myself more. I think.
So you can leave yourself more, or you can make a smaller loop back here.
Yeah, I got you.
Either one of those things will work, or you can make the loop of the 6 a little bit smaller, and that may help also. But I want to make sure that it's big enough that I can get my thumb and fingers through there so that I can push this line as I do my wraps. Now, people have different ways of doing this. You know, I've taught this knot to people who have limited finger mobility, and I've taught this knot to people who want to use their mouths to pull the line through, and that's fine. None of those things is wrong. There's no wrong way to tie it.
Yeah, I would say more is better than less. And then push it here. And then you make your 6. 1, 2. Oh, two got away from me. I see why somebody might say use their mouth.
The key to this is making sure that when you do your wraps that you make sure you go around both of those lines.
Right.
If you only go around one, then you're going to have
Is
a knot
4
that
better
falls
than
apart.
3 and 5 is too many?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, because of the thickness of the line we're using, if we were using really heavy line, if we're tying 100-pound line as part of a shark leader, then we probably would go 3, because 3 is easier to snug down at that point. If we were
Okay.
using really light line, we might go 5. But for what we're doing here, 4 is...
All right, so I've got my 4.
Okay. So pinch that line there. Okay. And hold onto this, and now just pull the things that you're already holding together.
And don't pull it like
You don't need to pull too hard at this point, but
Yeah.
you just need to pull it enough that it's not going to fall apart if you let
Okay.
go. Okay. Now at this point, you want to juice that knot just a little bit.
Lube it.
You want to take the pliers.
Yummy.
Really?
You want to take the pliers.
Fish juice.
Crimp the one that I.
And yeah, hold on to the end that you're going to cut off.
Okay.
And now
I'm gonna
this just like you did before.
I'm gonna poke my finger. I can tell.
No, you're definitely not going to poke your finger. And pull those things down just a little bit tighter. Okay, there you go. All right, now you can let go of the pliers. Now, you're going to hold this hook so that it can't stick you.
So like that.
There you go. Hold your main line.
Okay.
Juice it.
Did you go like corn on the cob? Did you juice the whole thing?
Yes, you juice the whole thing all the way down. You don't want to change the line. Did anybody get that on video?
There you go.
All right, now just pull. Pull those two things. Keep pulling. Keep pulling. You see how your knot got a little tighter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Pulling.
I did.
Keep pulling until it's not getting any tighter.
Okay, I believe it's not getting any tighter.
Think it's there?
I think it's
Think
there.
that's it?
I think it feels good.
Okay, then you can take these pliers and you can cut off your tag end, leave yourself about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of line left. The cutter is right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now, let's see. Let's just pull that, see if it pulls it any snugger, and it doesn't. Good job.
Okay. I see where those would be handy.
Yes.
I like your little bungee on that.
Very
That's
nice to have those things conveniently ready to go. Okay, now putting the soft plastic tail on here. We want the soft plastic tail to end up like that, okay? So that the hook is coming out of the back of the bait and the tail is pointing downwards, okay? So reversing that means that we have to start out with the back of the bait facing towards the top of the jig, okay? Make sense? All right. Now, most of these soft plastics have a birthmark in the top. See where the birthmark is? That's where the mold was cut. So that birthmark is where the point of the hook is going to go. Just take the point of the hook and put it right in there.
I never heard it called that. That's cool.
So I want my jig head and my soft plastic to be perfectly parallel with one another. And I'm going to push that soft plastic up on there until I can't push anymore without having to push it some that way. When it gets to that point, then I'm going to take the soft plastic, get a nice firm grip on it, a nice firm grip on my jig head, and I'm just going to push upwards until I get a 90-degree bend. Now, once I've got that 90-degree bend, then that's the point that I know I can take the point of my soft plastic and pass it out the back of the bait. So just pass it right out the back, and once it's passed out the back, then feed the soft plastic all the way up around and up onto the prongs of the jig head. So it's held in place, it doesn't pull off, and now it will swim the way that I want it to swim.
Is this a weight? You got weight here on this jig?
A jig head is basically a piece of lead molded onto a hook and then painted.
Okay.
So yes, this is a 1/4 ounce jig head. There's a 1/4 ounce of lead molded onto this hook.
Everything pretty much we do, though, is in relatively shallow water, so we don't
Correct.
need a whole lot of weight.
You don't need a whole lot of weight, but you do need some.
Some.
Number
Okay.
one, you need it for casting. If I just tried to cast
Right.
this without the weight on it, if I put it on the bare hook, it's not going very far. Number two, the weight on this jig head also acts like a keel, and it keeps the bait pointed upwards the way that I want it to be pointed. Number three, when we drop this bait over the side, it disappears down into the water. That's a good thing, because that's key to the action of this lure. Now you might think, from looking at this thing, that I'm going to imitate a small bait fish with it, right?
I have no idea what you're going to do.
Well, it kind of looks bait fishy, right? It's got a little paddling tail on it. Maybe kind of
I just got kicky with the line, so I don't know what
yeah,
you...
we have that on video.
Right.
What we're not going to do is imitate a small bait fish most of the time. To imitate a bait fish, you have to swim it through the water like this in order for it to look like a bait fish.
Right.
90% of the time, the way that I fish this is I let it sink down to the bottom and then I twitch it up into the water column. So it comes up and then sinks again. Comes up and sinks again. What I'm imitating is a shrimp. When a shrimp gets startled, it jumps up off the bottom and it looks for another hiding spot. So when I jump this thing up off the bottom and it turns and dives and goes right back down, it's a shrimp. Coming up off the bottom and it's trying to get right back down to a hiding spot. And the fish will react to that usually by trying to grab it before it hits the bottom. Because if it hits bottom and it's actually a shrimp, it hides and it disappears and you don't get to eat it at all. So you'll be casting this thing and you'll be retrieving it, twitch, let it sink. Twitch, let it sink. Fish just grabbed it, but you didn't notice that because your line was slack. You go to twitch it again, suddenly you realize there's a fish there and the twitching has also set the hook.
Why not just use a live shrimp?
You could use a live shrimp, but here's the thing that I can do with a soft plastic that I can't do with a live shrimp. I can cover a lot of water. So if I'm fishing a live shrimp, then I'm basically relying on that fish to come to me. Whereas if I'm fishing a soft plastic or any other type of artificial lure, I'm covering as much water as possible.
Okay.
So I can use this as a surf bait to figure out where the fish are. Now it's not necessarily a bad idea to be ready and rigged with a shrimp that you can then use as a follow-up bait. If we happen to find an area where there's a bunch of fish, well then we got a power pole here, we put the power pole down, and then maybe we cast some shrimp into that area and see what we can do, because fish always react more favorably to live bait than they do to soft plastics, in theory. But this is a surge bait, and it's also a reaction strike bait, because when it's sinking and heading towards the bottom, that fish just has that quick instinct of grab it or lose it. So a lot of times they go towards grab it, where that'll sometimes even get fish that aren't actively feeding. So, and that's what this uni knot is going to do. It's going to ensure that it does not fail on us. All right, so you got to make sure that you're putting this on the correct orientation. So we want the bait to end up like this. The hook is going to stick up out through the back of it. So if we dial that back, then we can see that we need to start out with the dark part of it on this side. If you started out with it on this side, then you would end up with the bait upside down on the jig head.
Oh, so they're looking for this part?
So this is the back part here. The hook is going to stick up out the back.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we want to go that orientation.
Jamming that up to 90.
Yep.
And then taking it, or
and then you're going
push.
to put a 90-degree bend into it. There
Right.
you go. Keep pushing that. There you go. So once you get that to have a 90-degree bend, then you can rotate this soft plastic around that way so that the hook comes out the back.
Like that?
Yep, but you're going to go ahead and pull the soft plastic so the hook comes out the back. There you go. Okay. Now once you've got the hook out the back, then you can hold the soft plastic and you can force it up onto these barbs.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, it never wants to go up onto those barbs, but you just keep pushing it until it gets there, and then you get your bait in a proper straight orientation, and that's how it fishes.
Sweet.
So you're going to reel that up until the knot is just about at your tip top, and then let's see if you know how to cast. Not the worst cast I ever saw. So what I'm going to do to ensure that my casts are a little bit easier and to ensure maximum efficiency, I want my hand on the rod in such a way that I don't have to keep moving it. So I want my hand to be in a position where I can cast and I can reel without having to change that position. So this position is good, this position is good. This one is iffy because it's hard to reach the line.
Right.
And once you have the line, then you don't have anything in control up here to keep the rod from pivoting. So I usually hold the rod this way, and then I make my cast, and you see this hand never moves. This hand just keeps staying in that one position, and it just always stays where it's at. And that will make you a much more efficient angler. When you're casting with artificial lures, it's important to be efficient because it can be energy sapping. You know, if you're not used to the idea of being here and casting an artificial lure repeatedly over and over again and working that bait, you know, it gets tiring. So
Yeah, my hand came off there.
I saw that. You want to hold it by the very, very tip of that rod, which is a dangerous thing to do. When you're holding it by the very, very tip of that rod, and that's all that's got a hold of it, easy to lose control of that rod.
Yeah.
So we've got those two soft plastic control. Break this one up. Get a shrimp. Ideally, you would rinse that with fresh water before you put that in the box.
I do have fresh water, so.
Ideally. I'm not going to put it back in my box. Now, for most of your clients who are going to be non-fishermen, really, they're not going to be hardcore anglers.
Right.
I would suggest sticking with circle hooks with that crowd when you're fishing with natural bait. Mostly because circle hooks are going to make it a lot easier for them to hook fish without paying attention to setting hooks. These things are designed for commercial fishing, and they're made to catch fish with no interaction from the angler at all. As a bonus, because they're circle hooks, they hook the fish's mouth down deep. So you're doing catch and release. This makes release that much more tenable without any damage done.
Janine, you got your license. Are you interested in fishing? Come on. Y'all before me.
No, go ahead.
No, come on. I haven't seen you on a hook yet.
And I,
You know, when somebody asks for a volunteer, I'm always the first one.
no,
I'm always the first one, so.
So I like half-assed by. So now I didn't see what you did first when you did this.
So put the line through, we double it over,
Why don't you catching a fish?
and then pinch it and pull. Okay.
I gotta shoot him over here.
And number 6.
I need more sun too.
You don't feel insecure at all. You're gonna fall and die if you do that. That's stupid. Don't do that. That's all that I just throw my rod. Okay. I cast and then release. Stay right there. Stay right there. Clear the grip of the rod at all times. right there. Some fucking idiot, because I don't know how else to put it, has seeded this line, the edge of the bar, with crab traps. They thought this would be a great place to put their crab traps. Now, I doubt they're going to get their traps back because their traps are probably completely buried in the sand by this point.
Right.
But their floats do present a fun hazard to navigation. So what we're going to do here is we are going to troll, and we're going to troll kind of along both sides of the drop-off. We're just going to go back and forth in a zigzag.
I got it.
That's the drop-off. We're going to troll up far to the drop-off, and back up all the way.
Yeah,
Looks like the Caribbean.
In a couple of months, as our tarpons start to move into Boca Grande Pass, this is going to be one of the top shark watching spots.
Ooh.
Because those sharks like to hang out on top of this bar, and as you can see, it's beautiful, clear, clean, and you can definitely see those fish when they're hanging out on here. So, and they're dark, they're almost black, so they stand out really, really well against this light, sandy bottom and the green water. So we're going to troll, and we're going to troll a little bit differently than we did in the shallow water.
Probably trolling you two are more used to.
Conveniently pre-rigged planer, yes. When the fish hit, it pops it loose. So we just have to untie whatever knots this thing has tied itself into.
You see him try and drop that on my toe and kill me? Y'all saw that?
I did. I saw it.
Okay.
I see all. I have the all-seeing eye.
You see all?
I have the all-seeing
That would
eye.
be terrible.
Well, not only that,
Can you even imagine?
You just, where are we?
We're at Gasparilla Island.
What's the name of the pass?
Gasparilla Pass.
No.
Yeah, check out the outrage.
No.
Pine Sound.
That's the boat
No.
I got.
Yeah? Is your boat's working, yeah?
Currently, yeah. It's on the market too if you want to buy
Boca
it.
Grande Pass.
Oh, Boca Grande Pass. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Now-
So you just hooked that.
I'm just going to attach this on here. Now, what I've got is I've got a ball bearing swivel.
Which is what you were talking about earlier.
A ball bearing swivel actually rotates when it's under pressure. A standard ordinary swivel does not. Okay, so I'm using a ball bearing swivel here, and the only reason I'm using it is because I need that rotation in case this thing gets spinning. I don't want it to twist up my line. Same thing here. I've got a ball bearing swivel in front of this spoon. That ball bearing swivel is only there to prevent rotation. I would rather not have to use it because fish can spot that and sometimes they won't hit because that's there, but I need it to keep this thing from spinning and rotating. Now, to use a planer, you want to get this thing, don't let that hook you, into the water like this. And what it does is it will dive down into the water like that, and it will kind of vibrate as it goes. You're going to get a little bit of vibration out of the rod tip. Not a whole lot, but a little bit, so that you can see that it's moving and it's working. When a fish hits, what usually happens is the pressure on this line I'm holding in my left hand then pulls the planer out straight. And when that planer is pulled out straight, then that means that you can fight the fish without having to fight the planer too. If your planer pops without catching a fish, then what happens is your rod tip goes from being bent over and vibrating a little bit to popping straight up and then maybe skipping every now and then. That means that your planer has popped and you are no longer diving down deep, which means that you're not doing what you expected it to do, which means you need to reel it up and reset your planer. In order to set this planer, you need to be moving at your trolling speed, and you need to lower it into the water and then open up your bail so that it gets carried backwards, but not just open your bail and let it go, because then it will pop itself loose. You've got to keep a little bit of tension on the line once you get it going so that it stays in this downwards
You do that with your
position.
hand.
You do that with your hand here on the line and making sure that there's some tension being added as the line goes out. This is a number 1 planer. They make these up to number 4. Take the number, multiply it by 10. That tells you approximately how many feet it will dive down to. So this gets you down about 10 feet below the surface of the water. We're in about 10 feet of water, so this will get us real close to the bottom. You would not want to use a number 2 or number 3 or number 4 planer here because you'd be hitting bottom, which would cause it to pop open, which would bring it up to the top, which means that you're just wasting your time. Make sense? Okay. Any questions about use of planers? All right. Pick us up to about 5 miles an hour.
Yes, sir. Are we using no bait? We're just using the spinner?
Just using the spoon. Just
spoon, I'm sorry.
there. You would never use any kind of bait while you're trolling like this. That would just cause things to spiral out of control.
5 miles per hour.
About 5 miles an hour.
Heading west?
Yeah, heading out along the edge of the sandbar so that we can troll back and forth across. Line management is the biggest hassle when it comes to dealing with these things. So what I'll do is, as we're getting up to speed, take your spoon, chuck it out in the water. Check it out.
Oh, I thought you said when we get up.
As we're getting up to speed, just chuck it out in the water and let it drift behind. Now, you got to make sure that you don't let this thing into the motor. Okay? You will not have a happy captain if you let your spoon get into the motor.
Stand to the side.
planer is heavy. The planer will fight you if that's what you've got.
Yeah. Feels like the planer's back down.
You gotta reel it in no matter what though.
Right?
Yep. Just to find out what's going on, you gotta reel it in. Alright, want to tie me a spoon on? We're tying on to that loop.
Gotta reel them in to find out what's going on.
Exactly. Reel that up.
It doesn't slow down. Yeah, I think that's kind of a good point.
Oh, you're compensating. There you go. You got a little ribbon. You got a ribbon.
We didn't get Scott.
We got a ribbon.
Oh, you gotta get a picture of this. Here's my $500 fish.
Oh my God, bring it back and try to get along the line. There you go.
All right.
Oh, yay! We won. Hey!
What kind is he?
It's a blue runner.
Okay.
Yay!
He looks like is he part of the mackerel family?
They're a jack.
A jack.
He's pretty.
Get it, baby.
Alright, get it out there.
Set it.
catching nothing with it in the boat.
Wasn't enough.
Yep. Yeah. This time I'm gonna let out a little more line.
How do you judge how much you got out? What do you do?
Why couldn't it have been a wet seaweed? Why you gotta go there?
Usually fish are quick. They don't hang out for a long time just sitting there doing nothing unless they're the stingrays. They usually move pretty slowly.
Mike, do you see one, man? Just go overboard.
Just grab it.
Good. Grab it.
Jump on it.
Remember to save sausages first so he doesn't hit you with the prop.
We don't need those things.
Okay, see that?
I saw
See
some.
that fish moving off that way? That was not a bonnethead shark, but that was pretty close to what a bonnethead shark would be. That was a big old ladyfish. The bonnetheads are usually a little bit slower than that, unfortunately. Not a lot, a little bit. Starting to get your fishy eyes on it.
So when you see them, you're supposed to cast?
When
Drop?
we see them, we say sausages and we
You're
slide
supposed
to
to stop the
neutral.
boat. You're supposed to
chafing type burn on your skin. It's almost like taking sandpaper and just swiping down your skin like that. No matter which way the shark's skin happens to be going when it rubs up against you, it's still going to be less than pleasant. You're still going to have some raw patch on your skin. So these types of shirts are great for that.
Yeah.
But I usually wear shorts, and so do most people out here. So if I get shark tail whipped, I always get tail whipped on the leg. So, but it only happens when I'm not paying 100% attention, which doesn't happen when I'm out with other people. That happens when I'm out for my own fun, and that's when I let my guard down, and that's when stupid shit happens.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're the same way on your dives. You're 100% on a dive when you're with somebody else, and then sometimes when you're on your own, you might get a little incautious.
Yeah. Sure. Right on, man. So those ones I mowed are real small.
Dime eso, por favor.